Hey y'all, so today's video is going to be a little different than what I usually like to put out on this channel. We're going to take it easy on the crazy sounds and the fancy editing. This one is just going to be a lot more straightforward with me just talking to the camera. And we're doing this because there was some sad news that recently occurred in the fandom. About a month ago, an apparel brand called Nomad Complex made an announcement that they are suspending all operations and will be sunsetting the brand indefinitely. Or in other words, they're closing up shop with no concrete timetable to return. This news rocked the furry fandom, and the community responded with an outpouring of support and sorrow at the idea of losing such an impactful brand. But if you're new to the fandom or just not familiar with Nomad Complex in general, this might come as a bit of a surprise and might even seem like a bit of an overreaction. I mean, it's just a clothing brand, right? There's no shortage of those to choose from. Why is losing this particular one so painful? Well, that's what we're going to look in today. Let's explore who Nomad Complex is, why they became such a staple for furries, and why brands and businesses like them are extra special inside the furry fandom. But first, let's get some of the basics out of the way. Who is Nomad Complex? Nomad Complex is a clothing and apparel brand from Vancouver, British Columbia, with the goal of making people look and feel their absolute best while navigating this crazy thing called life. They make a wide range of apparel that you can wear and accessories to go along with them, with almost everything they sell featuring graphic designs depicting anthropomorphic animals. This caused them to gain popularity amongst members of the furry fandom, and since they got their start in 2016, they have become one of the most recognizable brands in the fandom itself, with their clothing being seen worn at basically any furry convention or meetup. And this wasn't by accident by any means. They actually make really high quality products that not only last long and are comfortable to wear, but also have really cool looking designs on them. And I know this because I actually own a bunch of stuff from them. In fact, let me go get some. All right, here's the only one that wasn't in line to get washed, but I mean, look at this. Doesn't this look sick? By the way, this isn't sponsored or a paid promotion or anything. I really just like the brand. But we're not here to talk about their past or even their present. We're here to talk about their future, and unfortunately, Nomad Complex has been going through some rough times lately. On July 19th, they released a statement on their website regarding the future of Nomad Complex, and they highlighted some of the recent challenges that they were facing. We're not going to go through all of them, but the combination of a massive increase in order volume, increased operational costs, and a lack of staff to accommodate these needs, they were having trouble running the actual business side of a clothing brand. And their latest blow to that business was their largest, as they were recently informed that their warehouse lease would not be renewed at the original negotiated cost, basically saying that one of their biggest business expenses that they have to pay for every month is going up in price to an amount that is currently insurmountable. And it doesn't take an economics major to understand that when your business costs completely outweigh your business revenue, you simply can't keep the doors open. And with this in mind, Nomad Complex announced that their best path forward was to sell off their existing inventory and temporarily cease operation until further notice. It's an unfortunate turn of events for a brand that has been in business for over 7.5 years now, and a business that I know many other furries will personally be missing. But why are we positioning this brand ceasing operations as such a loss? I mean, like, why should we care? Businesses close all the time, and it's not like there isn't an ample amount of alternatives, especially when it comes to something like clothing. Heck, even within the furry fandom, there are other options to choose from, and we can all just get clothes somewhere else, right? Well, all of that is technically true, but there is a reason why no one wins with Nomad Complex going away. You see, Nomad Complex was in a very unique position in this fandom, where they became one of, if not the most well-known clothing brand in the fandom itself. Their designs became instantly recognizable, and as their popularity grew, the name Nomad Complex became synonymous with the furry fandom itself. And that was a big deal because up until the early 2010s, the idea of furry merch wasn't really a thing. Other than straight up fursuits, which are in a completely different league of their own, there was really nothing out there that the average furry could buy and wear that signified that they were part of the furry fandom. Sure, there was a bunch of other furry adjacent things that they could put on, like merch with characters from popular furry movies and TV shows, as well as other nerdy stuff that many people in the fandom would recognize. But there was nothing specific that you could wear that could be identified as something well known from within the furry fandom itself. That was until brands like Nomad Complex came around, and I don't know if this was entirely intentional, but by attracting furries and the furry fandom with their designs, they actually made a genius business decision. What Nomad Complex did was really double down on making apparel that was designed specifically with furries in mind, while still not being too furry. The graphic designs that they put on their clothing were generic enough to not be attributed to anything other than that Nomad Complex style, but were still close enough to the general furry character design that they felt familiar in furry spaces. All of this led to Nomad Complex and similar brands giving the furry fandom something pretty special, a physical thing for them to wear that signified to other people who recognized the brand that there was a pretty good chance that they were a part of the furry fandom. Thinking about this a little differently, the apparel that Nomad Complex and other furry clothing brands make almost act like jerseys for the furry fandom. No, don't lose me here. I know there's a bunch of you out there that may not be into sports, but just hear me out for a second. One of the most common things that sports fans do is buy jerseys, either of their favorite team or, more traditionally, their favorite player. And they do this as a way to show their support for the team, but also signify to other people who see them in that jersey that they are a fan of that team or player. And sports fans are a pretty communal bunch, and when someone recognizes a jersey that someone is wearing, that gives them a clear opening to start a conversation with them, almost like they already knew that person. This loose idea of being attributed to a certain community based on what you say, wear, or do is called being a part of an in-group. It's an idea that we've actually explored on this channel recently in regards to how using furry-specific lingo is a clear way to show that you're a part of the in-group of the furry fandom. And just like how sports jerseys give people that sense of community, what brands like Nomad Complex did was give furries that same communal opportunity. They gave furries something to wear out in public that allowed them to proudly share their furry affiliation, but only to other people who recognized that what they were wearing was furry merch in the first place. And I want to quickly emphasize that part about wearing their apparel in public, because to me personally, that was what Nomad Complex's differentiating factor was. Listen, it's no secret that I'm a pretty proud furry. Heck, I dedicate my entire week after work to making content about the fandom. But that comfort level of showing off how furry you are is different for everyone, especially when it comes to showing it off in public. Honestly, a lot of people in the fandom actually don't mind showing off their furry affiliation, but they like to be subtle about it. And that's what Nomad Complex did so well. Their designs are indeed furry, but they are drawn in a generic enough fashion that they just look like cool graphic tees to those unfamiliar with the brand. That makes them super easy to wear out in public, and to people who are not in the fandom, all they see is a cool graphic t-shirt. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten compliments from my friends, family, and even just random people in public on the shirts that I've worn from Nomad Complex. But I've also been able to strike up a conversation with other furries I've met in public who did recognize the brand, meeting people whom I otherwise would have never met if I wasn't wearing that shirt brand. All of this led to Nomad Complex becoming a true fandom favorite by furries, which is why them shutting their doors is such a loss to many in this fandom. Now, I hate bringing up that thing that affected all of our lives during the past few years. You know, that thing with the 5 letters and the 2 numbers? I'm technically not even sure if I could say it by name here on YouTube yet. But of all the things that suffered in this fandom because of it, things like furry clothing brands went a little bit underreported as core pieces of the fandom that were negatively impacted by the aftermath of what we all went through. And I think what Nomad Complex is going through can serve as a bit of a wake-up call that losing a furry clothing brand is like losing a piece of the fandom itself. So after all of that, what can we do about it? Well, for starters, there are some good things that we can take away from this. Firstly, technically, Nomad Complex isn't completely going out of business. They are only sunsetting the brand for the time being while they work on carving a new path forward. So there is definitely some hope that they will be back. But in the meantime, the best way to directly support Nomad Complex themselves is to buy something from them. Hopefully this is still going on by the time you all see this, but at the time of recording this, they are still in the process of clearing out all of their inventory on their site, meaning you can go there and still buy things from them. Again, they are doing this to get as much cash on hand as possible to handle any upcoming business expenses. So if you want to help soften that blow for them, buying something will do just that. But outside of Nomad Complex specifically, what they are going through can be a true catalyst for the fandom to continue to support the apparel companies that make clothes for this community. One of these silver linings that can come from something like this happening is that it allows other furry merch brands to make a name for themselves, but they can only do that with the support from the fandom. So if you can, consider picking up a piece of clothing from an upcoming furry clothing brand as your next furry fandom purchase. Remember, a lot of them are artists too. They just happen to put their art on something you can wear. And just the idea that you can wear something that symbolizes the community that is generated from this fandom is quite the privilege. The fact that that is possible without being a sports team or tied to an already existing brand or IP is a testament to the creativity and talent that this fandom really has to offer. This is why losing a source of that external fandom representation hurts so much, but I have faith that one day they will be back and better than ever. But in the meantime, from me and the rest of the furry fandom, best of luck to the people behind Nomad Complex. They truly are a staple of the furry fandom. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, stay wild out there. Peace.